Hello, my name is Lauren and I'm delighted to be making this video. Our topic is going to be a little bit of embryology and more specifically the development of the female and male reproductive systems. And this isn't going to be an exhaustive review, but just an overview to make you more comfortable with the material. And I think it's important material to know about because the development of these structures is going to have a big impact on the individual, and the disorders of this development can be absolutely catastrophic. So to jump right in, the basic building block we're going to start off with is mesoderm. And mesoderm is one of the three primary germ layers, and this is going to be the tissue, more specifically the intermediate mesoderm, is going to be the tissue that all of our structures are going to be derived from. But the mesoderm doesn't just basically sit there. It further differentiates into a group of structures that every embryo has before they differentiate into either male or female. And these structures I'm going to list for you. First one is a gonad. First, it's an undifferentiated gonad, but we know it's going to be the testes or the ovary ultimately. The next would be the Mullerian ducts. The Mullerian ducts are also known as the paramesonephric ducts. So if you see that on the web or in a book, it means the same thing. And the next ducts we're going to talk about are the Wolffian ducts. And these are also known as the mesonephric ducts. So again, if you see that somewhere, it means the same thing. Our next structure is going to be the urogenital sinus. And the urogenital sinus, as you can tell by its name, forms portions of the reproductive system as well as the urinary system. Next, we have the genital tubercle. And the genital tubercle is going to become the erectile tissue of the male and female. Next we have the urogenital folds, and I promise we're almost done. We only have one more after this, so thanks for hanging in there. And the last one is the labioscrotal swelling, and I think by the name you can sort of guess where that one's going, but we'll talk about its differentiation in just a minute. So the thing that's going to determine whether the fetus is ultimately male or female, I'm going to scroll down a bit, is ultimately its set of chromosomes, its set of sex chromosomes. So everybody gets an X, but females get another X, and a male gets a Y, and I think we all know that. But that's really going to determine how you differentiate, because in the human, the female condition is actually the default. So without any outside hormone production or outside factors, the body is going to naturally develop into a female body. So to go from here and become an ovary, you don't need any sort of outside factors. You just have an ovary here. Now, in order to get a testis, though, you have to have a Y chromosome, because the Y chromosome has a gene called the SRY gene, and it's not a sorry gene, it's an SRY gene. And the product of the SRY gene is testis determining factor, or TDF, and that's what turns this undifferentiated gonad here into a testis. So now we have an ovary and a testis. Now, to further differentiate into a female, again, you don't need anything because it really is the default sort of condition. And the default condition, the Mullerian ducts are going to develop, become prominent, and the Wolffian ducts are going to regress. So Mullerian ducts become prominent, Wolffian ducts regress. Now in the male, things happen a little bit differently, and that's because there is a testis, and the testis is going to start producing hormones. And the first factor it's going to produce is Mullerian inhibiting factor, and that's going to cause the Mullerian duct to regress. So the exact opposite of what happens in the female condition. And the second thing that it produces is testosterone, and we know testosterone is the main sex hormone for the male, and that's going to cause the Wolffian ducts to become more prominent and differentiate. So again, Mullerian ducts regress here, Wolffian ducts become more prominent. So we'll scroll back up. And so now we can start talking about sort of the structures that are going to come out of these basic building blocks. So to start with the female, grab some pink here. The gonad, as we know, is going to be the ovary, and the Mullerian ducts sort of take over. The Mullerian ducts are going to become the uterine tubes, which we know transport the egg to the uterus. Here are uterine tubes. It's also going to become the uterus itself, which is the site of implantation for an egg. Very, very important. And also a portion of the vagina is going to come from the Mullerian ducts. And as we said, the Wolffian ducts really regress. So we're not going to get any big structures from there. The urogenital sinus is going to form up the other portion of the vagina, so the lower portion of the vagina, and the greater vestibular gland. And the greater vestibular gland is important for lubrication during arousal. An important component of the reproductive system. That's the greater vestibular gland here. Apologize if my handwriting is gets a little scary in there. Next, our genital tubercle, as I said, is going to be the erectile tissue. So that in the woman is the clitoris. And the urogenital folds are going to become the labia minora, which are the ones that directly surround the vestibule. And the labioscrotal swelling are going to be the labia majora. So we have both minora and majora there. So now I'm going to switch colors over here and grab a blue color, and we'll talk about the differentiation of the male structures. So in the male structures, our gonad is going to be the testis, as we talked about before, and the Mullerian ducts are going to regress this time. Now our Wolffian ducts are what's going to become prominent in the male, and those are going to form the epididymis, which sit on the superior posterior aspect of the testis, the vas deferens, which is the muscular tube that transports sperm from the scrotum into the pelvis to meet the prostate, the seminal vesicles, which secrete a lot of compounds to make up about 60% of the total ejaculate volume, and the ejaculatory ducts, which traverse the prostate, and where more secretions are added. The ejaculatory ducts. And the urogenital sinus in the male, again, is going to become a lot of urinary structures as well, but it's going to also become the prostate and the bulbourethral glands. And the bulbourethral glands are important because they secrete a pre-ejaculate for lubrication. The bulbourethral gland here. Alrighty, the genital tubercle is going to become the penis, because again I said it's the erectile tissue. The urogenital folds are going to become a portion of the ventral aspect of the penis. And the labioscrotal swelling, as you probably guessed, is the scrotum. So now we have the differentiation of both male and female structures. There's one last thing I wanted to point out, and that's that a lot of the structures, such as the ovary and the testis, and let's see here, the greater vestibular gland and the bulbourethral gland, the clitoris and the penis, the labia minora and the ventral penis, and the scrotum and the labia majora, these are known as homologous structures in embryology. And they're homologous structures because they come from the same building blocks. So you can see that these are both gonads, these both come from the urogenital sinus, and so on. This is not true for any of the structures that come from either of the ducts, because in the opposite sex, the duct regresses. So even though the vas deferens and the uterine tubes may seem like they're very similar, they are not homologous structures. Only the ones that come from the same exact building block are considered homologous. So I hope that this discussion was really helpful to you, and I hope that you're having a wonderful day, and thank you so much for listening.